Now, I've already done a video so far talking about No Time to Die, but this film is still in cinemas at time of recording, and I've now seen it twice, and frankly, I just wanted to talk about No Time to Die for a few minutes. This video won't be nuts. I know some people will make like 55-minute video about No Time to Die, or Bond in general, or cinema in general, or anything at all. This video won't be that long, so you can just click off any time. I suppose length is sort of irrelevant, because if you really aren't that bothered, then you would have clicked off by now. And you probably have. Right, let's start with the good stuff. Well, there's quite a lot of good stuff. Firstly, Daniel Craig is really properly good in this film. I mean, he was generally always very good in his Bond films, his first 4 Bond films, but in this entry, there's a very nice blend of comedy and dramatic stuff. He's basically pitch perfect in this. The villain of No Time to Die is Lucifer Safin, and, well, he's a bit underdeveloped, to be honest. I like Rami Malek in the role. I know some people have been knocking his performance. I actually like it quite a lot. He's one of the more softly spoken villains. Not all villains have to be crazy shouting maniacs, because that would be a bit boring after nearly 60 years. I actually quite like some of the softer spoken villains, like, well, Dr. No, for instance, that Safin definitely isn't, as it turns out, despite many theories pointing to that possibility. I think Safin is a pretty good villain. My only real criticism is that he's a bit underdeveloped. His sort of grand plan, if you will, with the Heracles virus isn't entirely clear, and wiping out Spectre does make some sense, but I think when we get to the third act, it's a bit clunky, and a second or whatever, another draft of this script focusing specifically on Safin wouldn't have hurt so much. So that's really my only big issue with Safin. Rami Malek is fantastic, although I wouldn't say he will rank as one of the top villains. He's probably a mid-tier Bond villain, to be honest. Ralph Fiennes was great in this film. He actually has something to work with, unlike in Spectre. His scenes with Daniel Craig are really good. There's an especially good scene by the Thames where they just have a kind of chit-chat, if you will, and it's a really nice scene. It's got a nice On Her Majesty's Secret Service sort of theme subtly woven in there. By the way, Hans Zimmer's soundtrack is really nice. I wouldn't call it, it's not Skyfall level good. It certainly does the trick. I think Blofeld was pretty good and reasonably well utilised in No Time to Die, though I think Christoph Waltz's performance, given how he was a bit of a meek villain in Spectre, is actually a bit underwhelming in this entry. He's in like this cool Hannibal Lecter kind of cage, which I loved, and I think Daniel Craig's great in the scene, but unfortunately Christoph Waltz is a bit dull. And I'm not sure what the consensus is on Blofeld in this film in general. I think the decision to kill him was a good idea. It's just that it's Bond's ultimate nemesis, not just in terms of the Craig era, but overall. And he's just... oh, he's dead. He's dead. Never mind. And it just felt a bit... like, literally the definition of anticlimactic in the dictionary will now be changed to that scene in No Time to Die where Blofeld dies. It was just... wow. I guess because it's the last Daniel Craig film, you gotta wrap everything up. Incidentally, the decision to kill off Felix Leiter was a much better decision, narratively speaking. It felt like that benefited the film more, and it was really great. It was a driving force for Bond for the rest of the film after that, and it genuinely surprised me. I genuinely didn't think Felix Leiter would die, even though Ian Fleming himself nearly killed off Felix Leiter in the Live and Let Die novel. I think that Naomi was a pretty entertaining character. I know people were putting their hair out like, oh my word, Naomi's going to be a terrible character, that's a disaster. No, she was an entertaining character. She felt that she fitted in well with the MI6 regulars, who incidentally are also fantastic. They get a good amount of screen time. It's not too overbearing, it's not too in your face, it's just perfect. It's sort of in the Goldilocks zone of screen time, if you will. It's very nice, and they're kind of helping Bond on his mission, but they aren't part of the mission. They're not there, like maybe in Spectre, where, yeah, that third act is a bit clunky. I thought Madeline Swan was a vast improvement on the Madeline Swan we saw in Spectre. She's much more interesting. I kind of buy her relationship with Bond, and Léa Seydoux was a really great addition, or not addition, but part of the cast. And well, yeah, Mathilde, but Mathilde, Bond and Madeline's daughter, was certainly an interesting creative decision, and I think it did benefit the story overall. I haven't really given it that much thought, but I think it did, although Safin's decision to let her kind of wander off is going back to Safin's motivations and how he's a bit of a inconsistent character at times. That's more of a Safin problem than a Mathilde problem. Mathilde was a pretty nice addition to the story and help propel Bond on his mission in the third act. And then we get to Bond. Well, Bond gets bumped off in this, and I think the decision to kill off Bond was ballsy. It was, it feels in keeping with the Craig era. It feels like, they killed him off in Skyfall. Fair enough, you could kill James Bond, and I think it worked. I think that the visual sight of all the missiles coming down was a bit much. You could have maybe done something a bit different with the sight. You could have been a bit more ambiguous, perhaps. And it is controversial. A lot of people see Bond as this untouchable character. But in the context of the Craig era, James Bond hasn't been at all untouchable. He's been a human being. That's kind of the whole point of the Craig era, is they humanise Bond. And I think for him to die is quite cool. I would have preferred maybe a bit more ambiguity, because the visual sight of all those missiles ploughing down kind of takes the poignancy out of the moment a little bit. And those are my additional thoughts on No Time to Die. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.